It's only a model. Shh.
Hi everyone, I'm the Broken Meeple. Win or lose, I'm going to be honest with you. A little short review today for the White Castle Duel. Now, to get into context for the history of my dealings with the previous game, White Castle, I have done a review on the game. I believe I did it several years ago. I think I gave it a 7 then. It would probably be closer to a 6 now. It was good, alright. I mean, I don't like how tight it is. It's only 9 turns. And what you're doing in the game isn't that interesting. Most of what the White Castle kind of boils down to is the dice mechanic with the bridges and stuff. That I thought was pretty cool. And the game doesn't take too long for what it is, you know, unless you play it at max player count and then it gets AP Central. But, you know, for the most part, I think I liked it more at first, but then it did quickly start getting a little bit samey after a while. Like, the replay value wasn't really there, so I would certainly say that's more of a 6 for me. So I wasn't exactly like overly excited to know that there was a dual version coming out, and let's face it, every publisher is doing this, where they go, this, you know, they seem to do well on 2 players, what's our most popular IP? This one, let's make dual version out of it. It always feels like a bit of a lazy cop-out.
We've got to have money.
But some of them have turned up pretty good in recent years, haven't they? I mean, we've had Seven Wonders Duel, Splendor Duel was pretty good, you know, I've heard good things about some other duel games, although not all of them work, so, you know, it's hit and miss on that. Well, you know, Dev Games are coming in with the White Castle Duel. So, White Castle kind of worked fine at 2 players. If anything, I think White Castle worked best at 2 players, and you didn't really want to play it with 3 and 4 that much. So, the idea that there is going to be a dual one of this means, well, I hope you've changed it enough, because otherwise, why don't we just play the normal version at 2? It needs to change something quite fundamental to make it its own game. So, oh well, got a review copy of it, so thanks very much for that. Let's jump in and see what's what.
What are you waiting for? A kiss goodbye?
So White Castle Duel takes place over 12 turns, but split over 2 rounds. You have the outgoing phase and you have the return phase. Players will take an action by placing out one of these lantern tokens to begin with for the first 6 turns. And the idea is that you have these action spaces on the board. They'll be randomly determined as to what actions are laid out where. But each one has a space next to it, which will have a specific requirement for the type of piece that can be placed on it. So it's either going to be white, it's going to be black, or it's going to be coral, which basically means red. That threw me off when I was reading that in the rulebook. I thought, hang on, isn't coral white? Oh, apparently it's between pinky and orange. I don't know, but you learn something every day. But the idea is that for the first 6 turns, you will be taking it in turns to place one of these out onto one of the action spaces, and then you're able to do the actions to either side of it. The restriction being, though, is that whatever tile is there, whatever piece you put down there has to be of a different color. So this one, for example, denies me putting the black lantern token there, so I have to put the white one out. Now, if the other player wants to come by and go on that same space, they've got to put out something that's different from the other one. So they'd have to put out a coral one on there or a black one on top, because the next one there is different, is you can't duplicate what's already there. And eventually you're basically going to have a bunch of these spaces littered with these various tokens in various different denominations. When you do the return phase, you then take it in turns to take one off these stacks and place them on your board in the matching color, and you'll basically trigger off the effects of some income cards that you've collected as the game goes on, but you'll also be able to do more actions as well. So it's kind of a sort of a game of 2 halves. You put tokens on the board to take actions, and then eventually you'll take some off. But what you're trying to achieve during a game, besides the most victory points, is, for the most part, collecting icons and scoring for said icons. So the different actions that you can do involve moving your courtier character up the various ladders on the side of one of the sides of the White Castle itself. And basically, as you move up there, you'll collect bonuses, but for the most part, you're scoring for a particular type of symbol. And then over here, you've got the training grounds, where you can place one of your markers, you'll get a bonus, but then you'll score at the end for people that you've put there, as well as the number of like katana symbols you've done, you know, red symbols. And then there's another one for origami blue symbols. There's essentially 3 types and 3 actions that key off those particular icons. So as you perform these actions, which, you know, for the most part are just a case of place a marker down and now you have the icon and you get a bonus, when you get to the end of the game, you'll then look at how well you've done on that particular action win by scoring the number of markers you've got there times the number of icons you've collected during the game. So for example, let's take let's say my courtier get to the very top here, I get 3 points for every one of these flag banner symbols that I get. Well, I might have got banner symbols from some of these cards that I've collected. You can buy these cards as part of the action, and when you buy them, you get to do a specific bonus on there, but when you improve them via another bonus, you get to collect the symbols on top. So if I've managed to collect a few of these, let's say I've got this one in front of me and this one in front of me, which are a total of 5 of those flag symbols, then I'm going to get 5 times 3, 15 points. And all of the symbols and endgame scoring kind of work on that basis. You have a restricted storage of 10 of these daimyo tokens or money. Basically, it's a very tight resource game, much like White Castle was, so you're limited to 10 resources, period. You've got to micromanage that. But then you've also got the rice, iron, and pearls, mother of pearl tracks that you can level up, and these, again, you spend them to do various actions. And you've even got a little interchangeable token, which is almost kind of like I really don't like the setup of what's gone here. I know, I want to switch these two around and sort of jumble things up. Something a little different from the previous game, but you can collect this token in order to give yourself a more favourable setup. But there's not much else to really say on the game. It's a few little tiny mini games, placing these tokens out to begin with and then taking them back off after 12 turns, total up the points and see who wins.
That's easy!
So this game looks the same as White Castle did, and I mean, I was a kind of ho-hum on the whole graphic design and the art for that one. It's not bad, but I don't think it's anything to sing about here, but those of you who have played White Castle are going to see, a familiar sight. It's done in that setting, all the graphic design and all the iconography is pretty much identical to what White Castle is, so it's going to help you play this game if you're already familiar with the other one. But there's not to say that if you're brand new to this you won't understand it. Nah, it's pretty straightforward overall, because this is a pretty decent rulebook, honestly. There's not a huge amount of rules in this game, period, but you go through the setup, you've got some minor concepts of the game. You don't have to learn a ton before you actually get into the game. But the actual game sequence itself is pretty straightforward. They've got some very good sort of pictorial examples to showcase pretty much everything you do. So you should get through this rulebook after one read and be like, yeah, I'm kind of cool with the game. And if you know how to play White Castle, then that's going to help your understanding of this as well. Like, a lot of it was just clicking like, oh yeah, I remember how lantern cards work. You build them out in a row and you get the bonuses. And it's like, oh yeah, I get this whole thing of, icon times people that I've put there. That's similar to how the other game works, But we'll get on to what they've taken out of White Castle a bit later. And you've still got the turn sequence of the game on the back of the book, which is more than enough. You don't really need a player aid per person, because the turn sequence is pretty much 4 steps, and one of those is optional. So it's basically place or remove a token, gain the lantern reward, and perform 2 actions. There's your turn sequence. There's not much else to it. So pretty easy game to jump into, and it doesn't take too long either. I mean, 30 minutes is on the box. That's pretty accurate. This is only a 12-turn game, and the turns can be quite quick. But maybe a little bit of AP might come from each player trying to think, well, what is the best move here, because it is a super tight game. But yeah, 30 minutes is not too much to ask for this game to be done and dusted. And it's good, because I didn't want this. Most duel games tend to keep themselves to a short time period. This one should not be the exception.
This is the way.
Now, this game is super tight, like pretty tight. You've got very few resources to deal with. There's not much of an income system in this game, so you are really sort of scrounging for every little bit. And if that's your type of game, then you're in with a shout here. For me, it's fine, but what I'm not the biggest fan of is that, as I mentioned, there isn't really much of an income engine you generate in this. Like, this is not an engine builder game. You don't build up some kind of strategy and go, oh yeah, this is really working out for me, and now I'm going to get a bunch of stuff as I do this. It's like, no. The only thing that even dictates a kind of income engine is the lantern cards, but you start off with 1 at the beginning of the game. There's only 15 of them in a deck, and getting these is actually pretty hard. I mean, the only way to get these cards is off these particular influence cards that you buy, and maybe some of the courtier bonuses for climbing up the castle. But that's it. So there are many games where you find that you just don't get many of these. So you don't really end up with much in the way of an interesting sort of lantern display on your board. So when you are triggering the lantern reward, it's like, well, I don't get anything for that. All right, I'll put this token out. Well, I get 1 thing for that. I mean, great. I'll put this token out and I don't get anything for that one. I've only got them on that one. So it doesn't these don't feel like they come out as often as I would like. It would have been cool if you could build up some kind of an income engine, but, you know, they want to make this super tight, so that's the way they're going with it. They have removed entirely that dice mechanic and the bridge thing. Well, that takes out a little element of luck, although the luck is then replaced with the timing of these influence cards, because you might be gunning for a particular thing, like different types of icons, and the cards just don't come out for as you want them. Like, this isn't a game you can really play strategically. It's kind of weird, because it should be a strategic game, but you can't say at the start, right, I'm going to aim for the training yard this game, all right, well, this time I'm going to focus on the courtier thing, because if the cards don't come out saying those icons or having those icons on them, then you're just wasting your time. So you do feel yourself a little pigeonholed by the game as to what you should be doing, rather than you getting to decide what it is you want to do. You know, I want to focus on this game, I fancy a change. Well, tough. The cards say that you should focus on the training yards, so that's what you're going to do. Okay, I guess I'll do the training yards then. And then you might rejiggle the setup, and then it comes out and it says, right, now you must focus on the courtiers. And it's like, well, I wanted to do more of this stuff. It's like, no, you will do the courtiers. And I was like, okay, fine. It's like, it doesn't give you a lot of flexibility to do what you want to do. The game is basically saying, this is what I'm good for, deal with it. You know, you either do what I say or you lose.
And recycle those plastics, or else I'll turn you into a f***ing tree.
Despite the fact that the game is kind of pigeonholing you into saying, right, this is what you need to do well, there is still going to be some differences in variety between games, mainly because of the way the game is set up. You know, you've got different tokens here for, you know, the garden as to what bonuses they give you. Your action tiles are going to be in different orders, and, you know, your influence cards are going to come out at different rates. There'll be different White Castle climbing tiles. So there is an element of each game where it's like, okay, this game, it felt like where you really couldn't get any income cards out, like it's just not going to happen. And then you play the next game and it's like, wow, I mean, this one really did give you a bunch of these daimyos seals, so, you know, if you can do something with those, fantastic. Next game you play, it's like, well, money is in high abundance now, so I guess we'll use money for stuff. It's, you know, the different bonuses and the way the different cards come out are going to make each game feel just different enough. You know, you're still doing effectively, you know, one or two or three different things in this game, frankly, which is just a case of climb the castle, put markers here, or put markers there. You know, that's kind of what the whole game boils down to. But, you know, it's still going to have a little bit of variety. Now, we don't have that dice bridge mechanic from the original game. That is entirely gone. I do kind of miss it, because that was pretty much the heart of the White Castle game. I mean, if somebody is praising the White Castle and they say the best thing about it is what you had in the little castle and moving up tracks and stuff, then my God, do they need to play more interesting games, because that is not the interesting part of the White Castle. The bridge and the dice is hands down what makes that game. So taking that bit out does remove a lot of the good stuff that the original game had going for it. Now, that doesn't mean that this game is terrible as a result, because it doesn't obviously put it back here. This one is different enough that it stands on its own merits. It doesn't need the original. I mean, I kind of hate the fact that it is using the White Castle, IP and just calling itself Duel, because this is different enough of a game that you could separate the two easily enough. You know, yes, it uses these like little tokens and you have lantern cards, but that's kind of it. I mean, you could change the theme of this to something else and it would work fine just as its own game. So you don't need to play one to appreciate the other. You know, both can be appreciated on their own. And the fact that this is 2-player only, there's no solo mode, whereas the other one did at least have a solo mode, means that if you want a multiplayer version, then you've always got the White Castle. But even then, 2-player the White Castle does feel a bit different to how 2-player the White Castle Duel feels. So this isn't a cash grab, it's not copying out, they do genuinely feel different.
You're a man, I'm a woman. We're just too different.
So overall, the White Castle Duel is a decent game. It's nothing spectacular, it's nothing to write home about, but it's a decent one in this sort of dual lineup of games. It's different enough from its big brother. I would say I prefer this one slightly to the original White Castle. As much as I like that whole bridge and dice mechanic, it was getting a bit samey, and 3 and 4 players can be a bit of a monster sometimes. So it's like, you know what, I was really only playing that one or 2 player. I don't think I would want to own both of these games. I mean, yes, they're different enough on their own merits, but owning both of them, I'm not sure which ones I would decide to do. Like, would I decide to play this one like 2-player or this one 2-player? And honestly, 2-player games I don't get to the table that often anyway. So, you know, the White Castle was pretty much just a solo game at the end of the day, and even then I got bored with it. So this one is just going to be 2-player only. But it's tight enough that it does make you think about your turns. It's certainly quite interesting to have this whole, you know, placing the tokens down and seeing what your opponent's likely to do and how that's going to influence your next turn. So there's a good amount of, you know, tightness between the two players. I just wish that there was a bit more of an income engine to actually give yourself something to do in the game, and I wish that the game didn't sort of telegraph to you, this is what is going to score well in this game, you better be doing this or else. You know, I wish there was a little bit more flexibility, but that's the nature of the White Castle games. They're pretty tight. But overall, it's still decent. I'm just not going to sort of sing the praises of it, though. I would say, you know, it's easy to learn. It looks nice. It's produced pretty well. Small box. I mean, I would give this a 7 overall. It's a 7 out of 10. It's a good game. You know, decent enough. You know, certainly for a few plays, it's going to be entertaining, but I fear that maybe just like the normal White Castle, it's going to get a little bit samey with all the different, you know, even though you've got like different cards that can come out in that, the fact of the matter is you are still doing essentially the same 3 actions all the time, and they're not exactly the most interesting actions. So it's gonna, you know, entertain for a little bit, and it'll be good to play for those who are fans of the White Castle theme. For me, it's like, yeah, this is good for a few plays, and I can recommend it to people, but yeah, to write home about, to sing the praises of, probably not. It's another 2-player duel game, and it does just fine.
We are reasonably satisfied with the events we have seen.
So that's it for me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, then please thumb it up anytime you see it online. Let me know your thoughts. Do you prefer this one, or do you prefer the original White Castle? And if you did like the original White Castle more, what player counts were you playing it at? You know, that would be interesting enough as well. But, you know, do you think these two are too similar? Do you think they're different enough? Let's know your thoughts down below to help with the algorithm and all its craziness. So until next time, remember, it's only a game, and I'll see you on the next Broken Meeple video. Take care.